This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, I'm going to have Shabbos Rabbi as we prepare for Parshas Beshalach. So today we're going to do a little bit different. I want to read to you from a tremendous sefer that we've been quoting from recently. The name of the sefer is Masois Yerushalayim, The Travels of Jerusalem, which was compiled as a diary of the trip of the Minchas Elazar, of Elazar Shapira, when he came to Eretz Yisrael, I believe in the year 1930, when he came to visit Rabbi Shlomo Eliezer Alfandri. Actually, Rabbi Alfandri is buried in Har HaZeisim. It's one of the Kvarim that we didn't get a chance to visit, but the other week we learned about the Munkatcher's travels to Har HaZeisim. Today I want to read to you about when the Minchas Elazar traveled to Tzefas, Eretz HaKodesh. So Hashgacha had it that I flipped around the Shiurim today. I want to welcome my host, Rabbi Shalom Yisrael Orbach, who hosted me this past week in Eretz Yisrael, and who took us to Tzefas this past Thursday. We woke up 4:30 in the morning, and we got to Tiveria like in record time. I think an hour 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, right? I don't know if we should say that publicly because that might mean that we were driving a bit quick. But actually, the Baal Shem Tov has certain shemos that get you there quicker, so it doesn't necessarily mean that we sped Kvitzas Haderach. But basically, we got there 7 o'clock, and we have a good friend in Tiveria, Rabbi Binyamin Kempler. He organized a minyan for us and breakfast for us. And from there, we went to various kvarim. We went to the kever of Rabbi Akiva and the Ramchal. I believe we went there first. We went to the cemetery in Tiveria where the Talmidei Baal Shem are buried, including a Talmud of the Vilna Gaon, Rabbi Yisrael Mishkalov. From there we went to the kever of the Rambam, Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, Rabbi Elazar ben Horkenes, and the Shla HaKadosh. And then from there we went to the kever of Rameir. And then from there we went to the Chamei Tiveria, and we saw the Galilee. There's a shiur on the Galilee. Somebody asked me if I was standing in the Galilee giving that shiur. You'll see the footage. It's pretty good. Anyway, from there we went to the city of Tzefas, and we had a very warm reception from our good friends, the Rosen Mishpacha, Rabbi Aaron Rosen and his wife, and also we visited Rabbi Reznik, and also the chief operating officer of Breslov, Rabbi Mervis. So hopefully we're giving everybody their kudos online over here. But be it as it may, we were zoicha to go to the ancient city of Tzefas. We also were zoicha to get into a shul which is not available to the public. We went to the Rabbi Yossi Bana shul, and inside that shul, which you can't go to, but there was an old-time Tzefas Yid who has the keys of that shul, and in the shul is buried the Tana, Rabbi Yossi Bana. We were zoicha to daven there. Anyway, let's read about in that makkah. I mean, you open up the door, so there's in a separate area. Anyway, let's read about when the Minchas Elazar went to Tzefas, and he visited the Kvarim of the Ari, the Ramak, and Rav Shlomo Alkabetz, Rabbi Yosef Karo, and the Tana of Pinchas ben Yair. Okay, so let's take a look. It should be on your page, on page Kuf Ayin Tes. So he says like this: B'vayenu chazar l'Tzefas. When we returned to Tzefas, nishbar l'rasisim, we were broken to pieces. L'regel amlacha shel fanenu ad kai. Basically, they had a very arduous trip until now. Ve'imki kvar haya achar chatzos hayom uve'erev Shabbos kodesh, even though it was after midday. Aval admar shutay miskamin davka l'skulas hayom. So again, this was talking about Lag BaOmer. This is Lag BaOmer, Tafshin Sadi. Taf Reish Tzadi. And they wanted a Chaparayin to go to the Kever Arizal on Lag BaOmer, despite the fact that it was Kamado Moshabbos. Asher Heir ala Oretz Besgalois Toiras Harajbi. That on this great day of Lag BaOmer, it was worthwhile for them to go to the kever of the Ari. The Ari, of course, was the one who illuminated the words of the Rashbi. Uvechein b'tekifa achas. Therefore, in one fell swoop, in one motion, yaradnu b'chipazon le'ima kahara gadol. We went down quickly in the to the valley. So the ancient cemetery in Tzefas is sort of toward the bottom of the mountain, the place where the people live. The shuls are higher up on the mountain. Levaker kivros hakadoshim asher ba'aretz hachayim shama utchila v'rosh heyer lemul ever panenu. The first kever they visited, kever ishal ikim rosh hamekubalim maran ha'ari hakadosh v'noira zechusa yogan aleinu. So that was the first kever they went to, the kever of the Arizal. Suras, you turn over, kivroi hu begaloi. The image of his kever is revealed, as is the image of the Kfarim in our Medina, Bebinyan Kipas Avanim, which had some kind of dome of stones, Kegoiva Amma Be'erach. That's not how it looks now. Though his description of the Kever Ari is not how it looks now. Ula Erach HaKever Mechusa Be'even. The length of the kever is covered in stone. V'charas ala Shmai Harav HaMakubal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria Ashkenazi. Now that's a big question about the Arizal, because with a name like Ashkenazi, so you would expect that he davened Nusach Ashkenaz. One thing's for sure, there are many great people who daven Nusach Ashkenaz. The Arizal was not one of them. The Arizal daven Nusach Sfard. After all, he was the one who came up with the Kabbalistic intentions for Nusach Sfard. So there's a great debate among the Paiskim. Was Arizal an Ashkenazi, or is Arizal Sfardi? So you would think all the Ashkenazim are going to want to claim that the Arizal was Ashkenazi, and all the Sfardim are going to want to claim that the Arizal was Sfardi. No, just the opposite. All the Ashkenazim say, no, you take him, that he's a Sfardi, and all the Sfardim say, no, he was Ashkenazi. Why do they do that? Because from here, there's a tremendous question in halacha, and that is, are you allowed to switch nuscha'is? If somebody grew up davening nusach Ashkenaz, are you allowed to switch to nusach Sfard? Someone who grew up davening nusach Sfard, are they allowed to switch to nusach Ashkenaz? So what does it depend on? It depends on the Ari. If the Arizal was an Ashkenazi, then we have a raya that if you're an Ashkenazi, you could switch to Sfard. If the Arizal was a Sfardi, he never switched. So the Ashkenazim say, no, he was always a Sfardi. His name was Ashkenazi. Well, he may have taken on the name, he grew up a Yassam, he may have taken on the name from his mother's side. And the Sfardim say, no, he was an Ashkenazi and you could switch. So bottom line, are you allowed to switch? Yes, but only one way. Which way? The Mikubalim say you're allowed to switch from Ashkenaz to Sfard. Rav Moshe says, Chas v'shalayim. Rav Moshe says, you're not allowed to switch from Ashkenaz to Sfard. How could the Baal Shem Tov have done? Rav Moshe says, beats me. I wouldn't have taught. I don't know. I have no idea how the Hasidim were able to change. But, says Rav Moshe, anyone who davened Nusach Sfard, they're always allowed to go back to Ashkenaz. Why? Because that's your real minog. That's what you used to daven until the Hasidim changed it. That's the psak of Rav Moshe.
But you said in Mikubalim said opposite. It's important.
And the Mikubalim said the opposite. But Rav Moshe, who is the final word of halacha in America, he says you could switch, but from Sfar to Ashkenaz, but not the other way around. Okay, it's an old debate, old machlokes. Anyway, we know the Arizal was nifter in the year Sheleg. What's the year Sheleg? 1573, when he was 38 years old. Move on Mamela, it is self-understood, ki ha'hasragshus b'tzianim sen salzehu u'ma'oid nala. The feeling, the emotion that the Minchas Elazar displayed was awesome. The haloi hu ayer v'kadesh mishmaya nachas. This is a description in Daniel. Ayer is an awake one, referring to an angel and a holy one who descended from heaven. By the way, on whose kever does it say Ayer v'kadesh mishmaya nachas? That's what it says on the kever of the Rashbi. But the Minchas Elazar is applying this to the Ari. L'hayar l'daridaros l'galos chachmas ha'emes ha'amuka min hayam, to uncover the wisdom of truth from the depths of the sea. Ad ein cheker soifa umabed, page kufpei, three lines from the end on the top. Baruch kachav asoklaya ha'meir b'chalei lamos. The Arizal saw clearly in all the worlds. Mikatza al katza b'chayolei maroi mizdazim baruch piv hatahar. The angels on high would tremble with the holy, pure spirit of his words. Uba oiroi nira ar anachan hayom. Next to him, says the Sefer Masos Yerushalayim, this I wasn't aware of, is the kever of the son of the Arizal. Who's that? Rav Moshe ben Rabbi Yitzchak. Says the Masos Yerushalayim, Ve'ilu la yavai ha'adam la'artzena ha'kedosha ela b'shvil zeh. Let's say you could only come to Eretz Yisrael for a half hour. You land in the ancient cemetery in Tzefas, you daven by the Ari, and then back to wherever you live, l'shtadel zari, die! It's enough. Meaning, if let's say you went to Eretz Yisrael for a week, and you had a half hour, and you went to the Ari, and the rest of the time you had to visit your relatives. So basically, you know, what did you accomplish already? Oh, it's enough. You got in the kever Ari, v'yoz b'matas garolei. Rabbi, what? She's not saying what was better. You said if this is all you do, it's enough. Rabbeinu Shita Amad Kam Lilazav. The Munkatcher stood there in his prayer, V'Rabbis Machshavos Hayichad V'Yir B'Leiv Regesh, with many thoughts of unity of God and fear, with a heart full of emotion, V'Kol Yonanayim and longing. Uchamuvan Da'aloi Zehu Ari. This is the great lion, Asher B'Tarasa Yega Yom V'Layla, that we involve ourselves in day and night, Kimokol Me'avois V'Akdoshim Dar Chadosh Kivul Me'Habesht, meaning especially among the Hasidim, who emphasize the study of the Kisvei Ari as understood by the Baal Shem Tov and his Talmidim, that the Baal Shem Tov sort of brought down to the people the knowledge of the Kisvei Ari, and this was an especially poignant moment for the Minchas Elazar. Okay, we move on. Who is the next kever? The next kever was Rav Moshe Cordovero. Now, just as an aside, Rav Moshe Cordovero, the Ramak, had a different system of Kabbalah than the Arizal. In fact, in the Sefer Keser Roish of Reb Chaim Lashner, he writes that where philosophy ends, Kabbalah begins. Where philosophy ends, the Kabbalah of the Ramak begins. Where the Kabbalah of the Ramak ends, the Kabbalah of the Arizal begins. The Ramak had a very important system of Kabbalah. Who was the greatest Talmud of the Ramak? Someone who never saw him. The Ramah Mipano. Ramah Mipano purchased the rights to the Ksavim of the Ramak from the widow of the Ramak, and she would not release it until the Ramah Mipano sent money to the Beis Yosef and the Alshich to prevail over her to send to Italy his writings. In fact, in the Chida we have the exact amount of money the Ramah Mipano had to send the Alshich and the Beis Yosef to convince. He basically had to pay them to work for him to convince the Almana, the Ramak, to send his Ksavim.
Was he the Rebbe of the Ari also for a year?
Maybe. Let's see what he says here. Achar nechaz b'shafach sichenu v'asirasenu barada. Then we poured out our prayer in trembling by the Ari. Next to the Ari, next to him mamish la'oler tefila l'Moshe, to pray the Tefillah l'Moshe hu menuchas maran hakadosh aleki Rabbeinu Moshe Cordovero zechus hayagin aleinu u'Moshe ala l'maroim. Moshe went up, meaning that Moshe Cordovero passed away on a Wednesday. Chav Gimel Tammuz Shnas Shin Lamed. What year is Shin Lamed? 1570. Yes, remember the formula. You add the number to the year 1240. So Arizal was nifter in Shaleg, and the Ramak was nifter 3 years earlier. So you could sound like you know something. All you have to remember is Arizal Shaleg, and the Ramak is 3 years earlier. Oid b'chayiv shalari, while he was nifter still while the Ari was alive, who halach l'avoisai, he went to accompany the Ari k'mavor b'sefer HaKadosh Art Tzadikim, b'amot Torah, b'ayin shama ma'is arichos, kishnei amudim shalis halchu savil l'mitasu sharamak, acharei histalkusai. When the Ramak passed on, 2 pillars of fire went around the bed of the Ramak, and that's how he went up to Shemayim. And he is also buried under this dome, like the kever of the Ari. Now, if you go there today, I'm not familiar of any dome that is there in that area. They both have separate kavarais. Okay.
When did you go? When was this written?
This is written in Taf Reish Tzadi. So Taf Reish Tzadi is 630. Excuse me, 690. Add 1240 is get 1930. Now, by the way, who was the Ramak? So what do you mean, who was he? He's the Ramak. He's a Moshe Koraver. No, come on, we're in Tzefas now. Talk the language.
He wrote the Parsha Sulam.
What?
Did he write the Parsha Sulam?
No. No, the Sulam is more recent. The author of the Sulam? The Parsha Sulam was Rabbi Alshag, no? Ashlag, thank you, Rabbi Ashlag. The Ramak wrote Alima Rabasi, and the most well-known sefer that the Ramak wrote is the Tomer Devara. Right? So he brings down in a footnote, you ready for this? Kasa b'sefer Gugulim, that the Ramak was none else than Zechariah ben Yehoyada, the Navi. Also, some say he was the Sharish of Elazar Eved Avram. That's what. Now, I'll tell you a different thing. Actually, in the Shar HaGagulim it says that the Arizal told the Ramak that he had the... Oh, no, excuse me. We'll get to that. Weiter. So the Ramak was Reb Zechariah ben Yehoyada, the Navi. Some say he was the Sharish of Eliezer Eved Avram. Next. Vegam Panino Lebeis HaLevi. We then went to the Levi. Ne'imois Tzion, the sweet singer of Zion, Kedushas Maran Oleki HaKadosh, Rabbeinu Shlomo Al-Kabetz. Who's Shlomo Al-Kabetz? He wrote Kabbalah Shabbos. He wrote L'chadoidi. He was actually related to the Ramak. Rabbi, the Rebbe, V'gisai, and the brother-in-law of the Ramak. In fact, Rav Shlomo Al-Kabetz wrote a famous commentary on Megillas Esther. What is it called? Manois Halevi, which he sent to the Ramak, his brother-in-law, as Shalach Manos. That would I'd rather people send me Svarim than send me a Laffy Taffies. Okay. Umuva b'shla HaKadosh.
Your kids wouldn't vote that way.
There's a minog?
Is that a good minute or not?
Yeah, I'm not going to start up.
Ask the kids, they'll vote for Laffy Taffy.
But for them, they can't eat. They have to eat.
You can't eat them. That's true. Umuva b'shla. It's brought in the Shla Mechtavai that Rav Shlomo Al-Kabetz was with the Beis Yosef one night of Shavuos. And we know that they had a Giloi from a Malach who told them that Hashem was very pleased with their learning. Bal Hashirim, Asher, turn to page Kuf, Pei, Dalid. L'shloimai, Shenetzkablu b'chol Tzefas, he's the author of L'chadoidi that was accepted in all far-flung areas where the Jewish people have lived. Laimar below Shabbos Kodesh, Zemer, Hacharuzim, L'chadoidi, that spells out Rashi Tevos Shloimei Halevi. He's also the Baal HaMechaber Sefer Manois Halevi Megillas Esther. Ulepelek Ki Hamaisa Shaviu B'Sifri Tayore Arsis HaKodesh Me HaKadosh Me Rav Shimon ben Gabirol Shemei Roiv Chachmasai Niskanu B'Yumos Ha'olam. There's a story that Rav Shlomo Al-Kabetz was so wise that the Umayis Ha'olam were jealous of him. Yishmael Echad Hargoi, and Ishmaelite killed him. V'tmina tachas Ilan began shalai. V'ayidei shehisana shahateinu chanta pageh kodem zmana chakru v'achinoida davar v'nisla haritzech aloisa Ilan muva b'sefer HaKadosh kaviyasha amar Reb Shlomo Al-Kabetz. So basically, the story goes that the Umayis Ha'olam hated Rav Shlomo Al-Kabetz so much, they were so jealous of him, that they killed him and they buried him under some kind of fig tree. And the fig tree bore fruit early, before its time. And because of that, they said, what's going on with this fig tree? And they checked underneath it, and sure enough, the Rav Shlomo Al-Kabetz was buried there, and they hung the murderer on that particular fig tree. Now he brings over here in Ois Yud Daled, on the bottom, on page Kuf Pei Daled, that we know that Rav Shlomo Al-Kabetz sent as a gift Shalach Manos to his father-in-law and his brother-in-law before his marriage, and it's such a beloved letter. He brings it over here.
Which page?
Pei Daled.
So he writes over here that he sends it to his father-in-law, Chutani Gevir, and he says, Rabbi Yitzchak, v'ukain le'al elyon, kasher chavalim nafli b'nei ima ischalka v'garala afnachas bito shafra alai, Pati, like in honor of you giving me your daughter, I'm sending you this beautiful perush on Megillas Esther. Okay, so let's continue. Page Kuf Pei Vav. Ushloisha roi Yisrael malachei kim hanal kvoidim im kuma munach. These three shepherds, who are they? The Ari, the Ramak, and Ramosha Cordovero. The Ramosha Cordovero and the Rav Shama Akabitz. Yachtav smuchim la'ad la'olam, they're together forever. B'tziyunei kurasam, in their tziyunim. And the remez is Zeh Shemi. Shemi stands for Shloima, Moshe, Yitzchak. Shloima, of course, is Rav Shama Akabitz. Moshe is Moshe Cordovero. And Yitzchak is Rabbi Yitzchak Gloria. And that is their eternal resting place. Okay, he continues on. V'lei rachok misham. Not far from there. Halachnu fagano beisa Yosef. We went to the house of Yosef Haloi Hu Tzion Kedushas HaKadosh Alakir Rabbeinu Yosef Karoi. Moran Abes Yosef Mechaber Shulchan Aruch. When was Rabbi Yosef Karo nifter? This I didn't realize. Yosef Karo was nifter on Yud Gimel Nisan. Yud Gimel Nisan. The year Shin Lamed Hey. So Ramak in Shin Lamed. Shin Lamed is what? 1570. The Arizal in 1573. And the Beis Yosef in 1575. So he says, Rabban Shal Rabbi Seinu V'Abeseinu, the Rebbe of our Rabbeim and our fathers, V'halach L'mais V'Malkam, V'hanigla Yislanu V'neinu Ba'ar Nira'ar, in Nigla. V'achrei Amiras Psuke Derachami, after praying Psukim of Rachamanos, V'shtadchas Al Kivrei HaKadosh, Chavalim Naflu B'ninu Bez Hashem Pishnayim. Where do we go? L'Hisalich Ba'or HaChayim, L'vakar Tziyunei Rabbi Seinu HaKadmonim Me'ir Meinayim. Benistar the Ari, and Benigla the Beis Yosef, Torah Shtayim, Yachtav Yu Soyamim. Now, Marav Rabbi say, what do you do if there's a machlokes between these two great luminaries, the Arizal and the Beis Yosef? In halacha. What do you do? And there are many machlokes in. What do you do when you have a machlokes between these Ma'orei Olam, the Ari and the Beis Yosef? Yachtav Yu Tayamim. Hagam ki kolach v'nayatza hirnechaz b'svach karnei oris hator b'nigla v'nistar m'shalavim. The truth is, they both knew Nigla and they both knew Nistar. Kamay Shirayim G'dulas Rabbeinu Beis Yosef. We know the Beis Yosef knew Nistar because he had a malach who came to teach him Kabbalah. Like a whole sefer was composed, like it says Magid Meisharim, that they revealed him in Hashemayim Raz and Ilan. And we know that Rizal knew Nigla, like it's brought in the Sefer HaKadosh Divrei Torah. The Munkacher writes in Chilgav Ois Kuf Gimel, name of the Ari, that he learned Halacha Gufei Torah 6 times B'Nigla, and the 7th time Nistar. But L'Doirois Oilam, the Ari is known for his Nigla, for his Nistar, and the Beis Yosef for Nigla. So what do you do when the two of them argue? So this is one of the most incredible machlokes. In halacha. So the Chida writes that if the Beis Yosef argues on the Arizal, you pass him like the Ari. Why? Because if the Beis Yosef would have known what the Arizal said, he would have changed his mind. Because the Ari had Gilui Eliyahu. The only reason the Beis Yosef argued is because he didn't know the Arizal's position. If he would have known the Arizal's position, he would have changed his mind. He would have been Chayzar. Comes Rabbi Vadi Yosef, he says, who told you, Chida, that the Beis Yosef would have changed his mind? Why? Just because Ari had Gilui Eliyahu? Why would the Beis Yosef have changed his mind? Why would the Beis Yosef have cared that the Eliyahu visited Ari? Who cares? It doesn't matter. Not a Nigla. The Beis Yosef wouldn't have cared about what Eliyahu Navi said. Loi b'shamayim he. Says Rav Avadia, if the Beis Yosef paskins against Ari, we pass like Beis Yosef. And this is a very major machlokes in the Sephardic world between Rav Avadia and Rav Yaakov Hillel. Rav Yaakov Hillel will follow the psukim of the Ari, which is more of a Kabbalistic approach, and Rav Ovadia always follows the halachic approach of the Beis Yosef, because he felt the Beis Yosef was Mara Da'ara de Yisrael. Okay, weiter. Chaf. So they finished, they went to the Ari, the Ramak, or Shamal Kabitz, the Beis Yosef. By the way, there's some other great kvarim there. We went to the kever of the Bas Ayin, of Avram Ivshitz, and very next to him in the cave is the cave of Rab David. And I can tell you a chiddush. I've been giving this shir for a long time, and every time I quote this individual, I pronounce his name Ibishitz. This one is probably pronounced Ivshitz. So, okay, that's a chiddush. But over here we have an ois chaf. Acharei kechlois beis hachayim anar ragleinu amdu b'misha stel hayotze derech sham. They went all the way to the bottom. V'hoyer leneged einenu. And who was there on the bottom? It illuminated opposite our eyes. Kedushas ben Yoyer, hu menuchas hatana rapinchas ben Yoyer. Choisnoi shel Rashbi, the father-in-law of the Rashbi. Now there's a machlokes, was Reb Pinchas ben Yair the father-in-law of the Rashbi or the son-in-law of the Rashbi? But that's for a different time. So, all the way in the bottom, we didn't have a chance to go down there. It was a very tight schedule. But all the way in the bottom of the hill is the Tan Reb Pinchas ben Yair. What's the famous maimer of Reb Pinchas ben Yair? Tanya Reb Pinchas ben Yair Omer. Ha Torah mevi'ah lidei zehiros. Ha-Zehiros mevi'ah lidei Zrizos. Zrizos mevi'ah lidei Nekios. Nekios mevi'ah lidei Prishos. Prishos mevi'ah lidei Tahara, Kedusha, Ruach HaKodesh, Tchias HaMesim. Okay. The Shahirid of Demois, which says Min HaMa'ara, Pinchas ben Yair, was the one who cried bitter tears when he came out of the cave. K'mavor b'sachta Shabbos, She'mishkan kavoidai b'sada haniskar. The Gal Shalavana Mukaf Sava Alav. Now, look on the page Kuf Pei Tes, second line. Rabbeinu Higid. The Minchas said over, Shemakulo Mitzadikim, that there's a tradition from the Tzadikim, Lasois Hakafais, to make Hakafais al Kever Kedushas Reb Pinchas ben Yair. That they have an ancient custom, they would go around and around, they'd make Hakafais on the Kever of Pinchas ben Yair. And likewise we did this. Umaran Saad Baroish HaChabura. The Minchas Elazar took the lead. Ba'amiras Charuzei Ana B'Kayach V'Yosher B'Seiser V'Ha'amash Return Ra'achim Akim V'Ochen Zayin Pa'amim. They went around 7 times. So we didn't have a chance to do that. So hopefully I have to go back there to make the 7 hakafos. Hopefully next time. V'Sayrus Haya Adla Hafli. There's a great arousal there of connection to Hashem Ki B'Sada Nimtza'a. So Aknu v'Spalano Hashem Yisbarach Demois Enenu Tishtapechna Lavnei Kodesh Shel Tzion Brachmana Idkarlan Kayome De Pinchas Satana Liki Hazeh HaMoshe B'Gvuros Olam. By the way, once we're on the topic, there's a famous story about Reb Pinchas ben Yair, and the story goes like this. And you say, I didn't hear Dvar Torah in the Parsha yet, so it's a good thing you stuck it out until now. And that is, Reb Pinchas ben Yair was an expert in the mitzvah of Pidyon Shvuyim. In fact, it says in the Sefer Tanya that anytime a person goes to do the mitzvah of Pidyon Shvuyim, they'll be nislabesh with the neshama of Pinchas ben Yair. Fine? So he comes to a river called Har Ginoi, and he says, Ginoi, split! And the river split. Okay, so you say, big deal, I've seen that before. So the river said, by the way, why should I split for you? I'm going to do the will of God. You're going to do the will of God. I know if I flow, I'll be doing the will of God. You might not be successful in being Pidyon Shvuyim. So Pinchas ben Yair says, you chutzpinyak, split now, otherwise I dry you out. So he split. Now there's a guy walking behind Pinchas ben Yair carrying wheat for the Karm Pesach. He said, by the way, split now for this guy. And now the river knew that he's not going to mess with Pinchas ben Yair, so he split for the guy. There was an Arab that was accompanying them. He said, split now. And he split. Says, Amar Rav Yosef, there's Gemara in Chulin Dav Zayin. Kama nofesh gavra mi Moshe v'shitin ribavan. how much greater is this person than Moshe and the 600,000? There, for Moshe and 600,000, it only split one time. And for Pinchas ben Yair, it split 3 times. Fine. So listen to what the Gemara is saying. That Pinchas ben Yair was greater than Moshe and 600,000 Jews. So we were on Har Hazeisim, and we said over this question, it's the question of the Leshem. Question is, how in the world could Pinchas ben Yair be zoichet to be on a higher level than Moshe and 600,000 Jews? Let's talk about when Moshe Rabbeinu came to the Yam Suf. Did Moshe have an easy time splitting the Yam or a hard time splitting the Yam? It was hard. Moshe wanted to split. Hashem said, Netei Yadcha. What the Yam do? Nothing. So what did they have to do? Moshe showed the Yam, Aroinoi Shel Yosef. Didn't budge. Moshe showed the Yam, Braisa de Rabbi Shmuel. Didn't. Nachshon ben Amidav had to jump in up to his nose. Finally it split. So Moshe Rabbeinu is he's muchazach trying to split the Yam, and Pinchas ben Yair says, split now, otherwise I dry you up and you'll never be the same again. And it split for him, for his attendant, and for some Araber that was behind him. What's going on? How could Pinchas ben Yair accomplish what Moshe Rabbeinu was not able to accomplish? So there's a famous piece in the Leshem. Reb Shlomo Elyashiv, who lived from 1841 to 1928. By the way, the Leshem, Rabbi Levine writes about the Leshem, it's not on your sheet, that the Leshem could not really move his right hand except when he wrote his Chidushei Torah. When he wrote his Chidushei Torah, his hand moved like miraculously. By the way, by the end of his life, he dictated his Chidushim to his grandson. Who's his grandson? His grandson was none other than Rav Yosef Shalom Elyashiv. Be it as it may, the Leshem, who wrote the Sfarim Leshem, Shavai V'Achlama, in something called Klale Hispashtos Fistalkos Klalbeis Anaf Gimel Oistes, writes an amazing thing. That the reason Moshe Rabbeinu had such a difficult time splitting the sea is because it was before the Torah was given. Before the Torah was given, there was nature. And if you want to change nature, you're going to have a very hard time. But once the Torah was given, the Torah is the architectural plans of the universe. Along with the giving of the Torah is control of the universe. And the control over the universe was given to the Chachmei HaTorah. But then the Leshem says an even bigger chiddush. He says, we find that after the Torah was given, there are more miracles that were performed. So for example, how many times in Chumash do we find Tchias HaMesim? The answer is 0. Nobody brought anybody back to life in the Chumash. And in the Nevi'im we find Eliyahu, Elisha 3 times. Why is that? The answer is, Elisha twice I think. The answer is, says the Leshem, after the Torah was given, the masters of the Torah had complete mastery over the Bria and over creation. However, one amazing phenomenon that we note is that while Eliyahu and Elisha were only able to be Mechai Mesim a few times, in the Amoraim in the Gemara were able to be Mechai Mesim every Monday and Thursday. Anybody who died, they could wake up. In fact, there's a tradition that if your name is mentioned in the Gemara, you could be Mechai Mesim. That's why sometimes it will say, Hahu Gavra. There was a man, what's his name? Can't say his name. He could be Mechai Mesim. But if it says your name, so how is it possible that only Eliyahu and Elisha were able to be Mechai Mesim, and every single Tana and Amoira was able to be Mechai Mesim? And to that, the Leshem says that the Iker Torah is the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and the Iker Zman of the giving of the Torah Sheba'al Peh was during the second Beis HaMikdash, and from the period of the Tanoim going into the Amoram, the completion of the Torah was given. That was the Zman that the heavens were open to give over to the world the Soidos of Torah Sheba'al Peh, and along with that came the absolute mastery and control over the Bria. That's why Reb Pinchas ben Yair had an easier time doing what Moshe Rabbeinu had a more difficult time doing. Okay, so be it as it may, that's what we mentioned over here. We're talking about the Tana, Reb Pinchas ben Yair, and he quotes over here the story of what happened to him in Chulin on Daf Zayin. Okay, let's do one more ice, and then we'll wish you good Shabbos. Chaf Aleph, page Kuf Pei Tes. Ba'aloseinu min hahar. When we went up the mountain to Tzefas, we came by the kever of the Tana, Rabbi Yeshua. So what do you mean, Rabbi Yeshua? Hoshea! No, it's not Hoshea. Hoshea is not buried there. He says, even though the Olam says that it's the kever of Hoshea ben Be'eri, the Minchas Elazar said in the name of the Rizal that it is not him, but rather the Tana Rabbi Yeshua. Okay, and then he writes how they went up the mountain with the kayak of all these tefillos. Look in the parentheses. V'anila atzmi marabana maganim imnei chabosh shlita ragleni yarutzu v'lo yigo oid achar kach v'yemal babag b'saz kibbutz hakadoshim halalu. He says we went back on Sunday to daven by Maran ha'alshich and Rabbi Yaakov Abuav and the author of the Ber Mayim Chayim and the Yenuka, and we went to the Mikveh Ari that is in Tzefas Achino Liga B'Yadayim B'Meimeha Meimei Hadas. And then the Munkacher said as follows. This is something I didn't get a chance to say yet. Actually, I think we did mention that we have a tradition from the Ari that how many Jews are buried on the mountain in Tzefas? Twice as many that left Mitzrayim, 1.2 million. Mi yala b'har hazeh, u'mi yimne v'yisras roiva yisrael v'tzadeim ladas. An amazing place. He says, after Achar Advar Ma'ila, Banu la'achsanya shalanu, b'tzfas v'ayafos, we came to our host, very tired. All of our vertebrae were protruding from the weary day, without any rest for the weary, awaiting the great day of Shabbos. Okay, Marav Rabbi Yisai.
Why was Tzefas such a big place to be buried as opposed to Yerushalayim?
So the Chesed Avram writes, and we went to his kever in Hebron, in the ancient time. The Chesed Avram was the grandfather of the Chidah, that if somebody passes away in Tzefas, the ear is so clear that the soul goes quicker to Gan Eden than any other place in the world. So Rabbi Yisai, it's a very big skula to be buried in Tzefas. It's even a bigger skula to remain alive and to learn Torah. So I wish everybody a good Shabbos, bracha v'hatzlacha. Shkaya.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.